Speed and Shine. Today we are heading out to a very special event. Our friend of the show, Ted Odell, has told us about a really cool thing that's happening right here in our fair city, Jackson, Michigan, where Speed and Shine is located. And so we're going to go over there and see what it is. I guarantee you it'll be worth the watch. It'll be something really cool. All right, Ted, this is a unique event. Tell us what's going on here.
This is the annual convention for the Kaiser Fraser Owners Club International, and all week we've come together here just outside of Jackson to celebrate the Kaiser Fraser products, which included the Kaiser automobile, the Fraser automobile, the Kaiser Darren, like we see behind us, as well as a car called a Henry J, a Willis car, and also a Allstate automobile. You can also throw in some Fraser rototillers because those were made at the factory as well.
And this is the factory where they were made?
This is the factory where all of the Kaiser Darren automobiles were made in 1954. The important thing to know about these beautiful automobiles is that they are completely made from fiberglass, and they have a Continental Flathead 6 engine in them. And the most interesting thing is that these cars actually beat the Chevy Corvette to the market by about 6 months. But they were so underpowered, and it's clearly a sports car for someone of means. You may have noticed there's no glass in the doors, and the doors slide into the front fender, so they weren't real practical for a guy with a wife and kids.
And how many of these were made?
There were 435 of these cars made right here in Jackson, and there are currently just over 200 on our national register that we know that still exist today. They could be in different conditions. Some are, technically barn finds, and others are fine museum examples like the ones here today.
And so why are they here?
We wanted to come down to the factory. Many of the owners of these cars, they're scattered across the country, and they don't have the opportunity to come to Jackson that often. And since we were so close, we wanted to bring some of the owners down here to actually see the factory where the cars were assembled.
And so what you did is you organized a convention of sorts for them?
Yes. Yeah, this is actually the 75th anniversary of the Kaiser Fraser Automobile Company. If the name Kaiser sounds familiar to people, that's because it's the same gentleman, Henry J. Kaiser, who made a career out of building roads and bridges on the west coast of the country, primarily in the state of California. And then he also went on to build Liberty warships during World War II. And then you may have heard of Kaiser Aluminum, Kaiser Permanente, and Kaiser Health. That's all the same guy. Okay. And at one point he was a little bored and wanted to spend money, so he connected with an automotive designer called Joe Frazer, and they designed the Kaiser Fraser automobiles. The most important thing to know about those cars is that they were the first cars available to the American public following World War II, because the big three were changing over from war production.
And these were ready to roll.
These were ready to roll, absolutely.
Well, there's some beautiful cars, and what a great thing you did organizing this.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's not often you get to bring a Kaiser Darren to its basically cradle where it was born here in Jackson, Michigan.
Now, do you own one, a Kaiser?
I own 1951 Kaiser Deluxe, and I also own a 1948 Frazer Manhattan. I don't own a Kaiser Darren yet, but it's on my bucket list.
Yeah, they're expensive, aren't they?
I'm going to need to have a fundraiser.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Larry. It's a great event here, and what's your role with the club?
I've been on the Kaiser Club since the very beginning. When it's 1959, my parents helped start the Kaiser Fraser Owners Club in Chicago, and I've been with it ever since. And I'm now the Western Division Director for the Kaiser Fraser Owners Club.
Wow, that's a great honor.
Sure. And
And you're from Arizona, so you've traveled a long ways to be here today.
about 2,000 miles.
And these are just fantastic and beautiful cars, and I bet there's going to be some people watching this who's never seen one before.
Right. The Darren actually came out before the Corvette with General Motors. It came out around '53. Came out, and Howard Dutch Darren was the designer of the automobile of Santa Monica, California. And Corvette decided they needed to build a sports car to put Kaiser out of business, so they built a sports car in a competition called the Corvette. But Dutch Darren was messing with he was dealing with fiberglass and working with fiberglass back in the early 40s, and he decided to build a car, and he styled the automobile. He actually built the car and styled it.
I think the most unique thing that sets it apart is that slide-in door right there.
They call those a pocket door.
Pocket door, okay.
Yes. And they slide in the front doors. The car has an F-head Willys motor for the drivetrain, 3-speed with overdrive. And it's they're sitting, the fiberglass body sitting on a modified Henry J. chassis, Henry J. Kaiser chassis.
And what model of Kaisers do you own?
I've got all the way from 1949 all the way to 55. I had the very last Kaiser in Arizona, the very last one built in Toledo. Our family in Arizona entertained Howard Dutch Darren in our home in Phoenix, Arizona, back in the early 70s. And he was explaining the whole story with Darren and why it came to be. In 1953, he had the prototype in his garage in Santa Monica, and he had a big party. And some of the guys from General Motors decided they need to check these cars out, so they went out to Santa Monica, took a lot of pictures, and went back to GM, and they said, we got to put Kaiser out of business, so they built the Corvette. The 6 Corvettes they built were on rotating stands with a real pretty, elegant model up on the stands, and the Darren was on the floor, and nobody would acknowledge that Kaiser had a Darren. They were all covered up, so Dutch Darren turned around on the crowd and mooned the crowd, and everybody turned around and said, oh, well, Kaiser's going out of business, we'd rather have a Corvette, and that ended the company.
Wow. Really?
Correct.
True story?
Yes, and these cars were all hand built here in this factory. We looked behind us, and it cost so much money to rebuild these. The bodies were built by Glasspar Boat Company, and they were very expensive to hand make these things. So they actually took a bath. They built 435 automobiles, and they were going to build about 1,000 of these cars, but they only had built 435. And that was pretty much the end of Kaiser Fraser Corporation.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
A moon ended it all.
Yep. He just turned around and mooned the crowd, and nobody would acknowledge. And everybody said, oh, well, we'd rather have a Corvette because Kaiser's going out of business. And that was the end of it.
Amazing.
So that makes the car very desirable because only 435 of these automobiles still exist. We found most of them in the country, and most of them have been restored. So it's just a really unique automobile.
And beautiful. It's a
Yes,
beautiful car.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis, this is just a beautiful car. How long have you owned it?
Actually, my dad bought this car in 1971 from a guy that had 2, and he drove it every day during the summer as his daily driver. And then after he passed, then it kind of sat in the garage until about 17 years ago, and I talked to my mother and said, hey, I'll restore it, and we'll bring it back. And so we spent about 3 or 4 years tracking down parts and restoring it to get it to where it is today.
Wow, it's just an awesome car, and it's even better that the story was your dad's.
Yeah, my dad, as far back as I can, well, even before I was born, my dad collected cars, and the first car I remember him having was a 1930 Essex, and so he actually traded the 1930 Essex and a 1949 Jeepster on this car. And the funny thing was, at the time, I had 3 siblings, and another one on the way. And my mother was like, "You did what? You traded a vehicle that we could get the whole two vehicles that we could get the whole family in for a 2-seater?" So she wasn't very happy about it, but it worked out okay.
So your dad had a moment of just craziness there, right? Not being very adult-like, but sometimes when you see the right car, that happens.
Yeah, he had a feeling that he said someday these things are going to be worth something. At the time, they weren't worth anything, and but he said they're just too unique that someday their time will come, and he kind of had a sense about unique vehicles. That's he didn't go after the run-of-the-mill vehicles. He went after the ones that were a little more rare and hard to find.
Well, it's great you let me sit in here. Yeah, and this is it's simple, but it's really awesome the way it's set up.
Yeah, they were a little ahead of their time with you didn't see padded dashes in the 50s, and obviously the sliding doors that was unique to Kaiser, but to the Darren even. But yeah, there were a lot of things, and that was kind of their downfall. They had so many things that were ahead of their time that made the cars more expensive, and you could go buy brand X for a lot less money, and it finally caught up with them.
What attracts you to the car the most?
Oh, I think it's just it's fun having a convertible, but you go to a car show and it doesn't matter where you are. Kids come, they flock to it. We spend more time sliding the doors back and forth to show the kids because they're like, "Wow, that's cool," and than anything else. But it's just a lot of fun to drive and just to putter around with.
And do people try to guess what it is?
Oh yeah, we always get is that a German car? Is that Kaiser? And so I tease them, being from Illinois. It's like, well, it was built in a foreign country. It was built in Michigan. So.
Oh, come on. That's great.
So, but no, it's, you kind of tell them the story of the car and who designed it and those kind of things, and point out other cars, because Darren designed, he had a Packard. He designed one of the Fords, several of the Kaisers, and then he had his own design studio. I mean, he was kind of a genius in his own right.
Now, did you trailer it here?
I do, just because it's about an 8-hour drive from Quincy up here, and when we left it was pouring down rain, and it doesn't do too well in the rain.
I get that. The value's it's too much. I would trailer it to where I was going.
It's definitely not a trailer queen though. I mean, we trailer it to where we're going and then we drive it around.
Right. I get that. Well, thanks for sharing it with us, and it's a beautiful car.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.